Imagine a time before the jingle of coins in a pocket, a time before wallets, banks, or even the idea of a fixed price. This was the world of early Sweden, long before it was a unified kingdom. Here, life was about survival, community, and trade. But how did you trade without money? You used what you had. A farmer with too much grain might trade his surplus for a sharp iron axe crafted by the local blacksmith. A fisherman with a good catch could exchange his fish for warm woolen cloth woven by a neighbor. This was the age of barter, a direct and honest exchange of goods and services. It was a system built on need, negotiation, and trust between people. This system worked well enough for small local communities where everyone knew each other. But it had its limits. What if the blacksmith didn't need any more grain? What if the weaver had all the fish she could eat? Barter required what we call a double coincidence of wants. You had to find someone who not only had what you wanted but also wanted what you had. As trade routes expanded and people began to travel further, this became a real problem. A simple, portable, and universally accepted form of value was needed. Something that everyone, from a local farmer to a foreign merchant, would agree was worth something. The answer, for Sweden and much of the ancient world, was silver. Not as neat, round coins, not yet. At first it was used by its weight. People would carry pieces of silver, fragments of jewelry, bits of tableware, or rough-hewn bars. This was known as hack silver or hack silver. When it was time to make a payment, you would simply chop off a piece of the required weight using a small set of scales. It was a messy and imprecise system, but it was a massive leap forward. Silver was durable, it was rare enough to be valuable, and most importantly, people everywhere desired it. It became the lubricant for a growing economy. Alongside this chopped-up silver, foreign coins began to trickle into the lands that would become Sweden. These weren't used as coins with a face value, but rather as convenient, pre-weighed lumps of precious metal. Coins from the Roman Empire, the Byzantine Empire, and especially the Islamic caliphates found their way north along the winding trade routes. A merchant might not know the face of the emperor on the coin, but they knew it was made of good silver. They would weigh it, test its purity, and accept it as payment, often just to melt it down or chop it up into smaller pieces later. This was the chaotic, but vibrant economic world that set the stage for Sweden's own coinage. The Vikings were more than just raiders, they were master traders and explorers. Their longships, those magnificent vessels of wood and sail, were not just weapons of war, but also cargo ships that connected Scandinavia to the known world. From the late 8th century, these Norsemen looked eastward, sailing down the great rivers of what is now Russia and Ukraine. They journeyed all the way to the sophisticated and incredibly wealthy cities of the Byzantine Empire, like Constantinople, and the Islamic caliphates in Baghdad. They weren't just looking for plunder, they were looking for silver, the ultimate prize. What did they have to trade? They offered the riches of the north, thick furs from forest animals, strong amber washed up on the Baltic shores, honey, wax, and tragically, slaves captured in their raids. In return, they demanded one thing above all else: silver. The Abbasid Caliphate, in particular, had vast silver mines and produced enormous quantities of beautiful coins called dirhams. These small, thin silver coins, stamped with elegant Arabic script instead of a ruler's face, flowed northwards in staggering quantities. For the Vikings, these coins were not just money. They were a source of pure, high-quality silver bullion. Back in Scandinavia, these dirhams were rarely used as we use coins today. You wouldn't buy a loaf of bread with a single dirham. Instead, they were treated as raw material. They were weighed, tested for purity by nicking or bending them, and often chopped into pieces to make exact payments. This hack silver economy was dominant. Thousands upon thousands of these coins have been found in Viking hoards, buried across Sweden. These buried treasures weren't pirate chests. They were the savings accounts of their day, buried in the ground for safekeeping during troubled times, a testament to the sheer volume of wealth flowing into the region. This river of Eastern silver fundamentally changed Scandinavian society. It created immense wealth for chieftains and successful traders, allowing them to fund more voyages, reward their followers, and display their power through elaborate silver jewelry. Arm rings, neck rings, and brooches were not just decoration. They were wearable wealth, a portable bank account that could be chopped up when needed. This constant flow of foreign silver created a silver-based economy and accustomed the people to the idea of using precious metal for exchange. It prepared the ground, both economically and psychologically, for a revolutionary idea. A coin minted not in Baghdad, but right here at home. The year is around 995 CE. A new millennium is dawning. In the fledgling town of Sigtuna, nestled by the shores of Lake Mälaren, something truly historic is happening. This isn't just another trading post. It is the political and religious heart of a newly forming kingdom. And its ruler, King Olof Skötkonung, the first Christian king to rule over both the Swedes and the Geats, decides it's time for a change. It's time for Sweden to have its own money. He establishes the very first royal mint in Sweden, and from its workshops emerge the nation's first homegrown coins, the silver penningar. These first coins were not a wholly Swedish invention in their design. King Olaf looked west, not east, for his inspiration. The model for his new coin was the English penny, specifically the crux-type penny of King Ethelred II, often known as Ethelred the Unready. This makes perfect sense. The Vikings had been raiding and, more importantly, receiving massive payments of Danegeld from England for decades. This was protection money, paid in silver pennies to stop the Viking attacks. Huge quantities of English coins had flooded into Scandinavia, so their design was familiar and trusted. Using a similar design was a smart move, ensuring people would accept the new local coins. So, what did this first Swedish coin look like? On one side, the obverse was a portrait of the king, Olaf, facing left. Around the edge was a Latin inscription, often something like Olaf Rexen Situn, which means Olaf, king at Sigtuna. This was a powerful statement. It wasn't just a piece of silver, it was a symbol of royal authority, linking the coin directly to the king and his new capital. It broadcasted his power and legitimacy to everyone who held it. It was a piece of political propaganda you could carry in your purse. On the other side, the reverse, the coin mimicked its English counterpart closely, featuring a prominent short cross, known as a short cross type. The inscription on this side named the moneyer, the man responsible for striking the coin, and guaranteeing its weight and silver content. Names like Leofmen or Godwine on Sitten appear, names that are distinctly English. It's almost certain that King Olaf imported skilled moneyers directly from England to set up his mint and train local craftsmen. This was the birth of Swedish currency, a silver penning born in Sigtuna but with a clear English accent. The creation of the first penning under Olof Skötkonung was just the beginning of a long and often turbulent journey for Swedish coinage. After this initial burst of minting in Sigtuna, the production of coins in Sweden became sporadic. For long periods during the 11th and 12th centuries, coin production seems to have stopped altogether, and people once again relied heavily on foreign coins and raw silver. It was a step backwards. The central royal power that Olaf had established was not yet strong enough to maintain a consistent national currency. Local lords and shifting power dynamics meant the mints fell silent. When coin production did resume in the 12th and 13th centuries, the coins themselves began to change dramatically. The early, well-made silver pennings gave way to what are known as bracteates. These were extraordinary coins, struck on just one side. They were made from incredibly thin sheets of silver, so thin that the design punched onto the front showed through in reverse on the back. They were fragile and lightweight, but they were cheap and easy to produce in large numbers. This allowed for more coins to enter circulation, helping to fuel the growing economy of medieval towns and markets. The designs on these bracteates were often more artistic and varied than the earlier coins. Instead of just a king's head, you might find stylized crowns, letters, stars, or even mythical beasts. However, this period also saw a gradual and worrying trend debasement. To make more coins from the same amount of silver, or to generate more profit for the crown, the purity of the silver used was often reduced. Copper was mixed in, making the coins less valuable. This was a constant struggle throughout the Middle Ages. People would hoard the older, purer coins and try to spend the newer, debased ones, a principle we now call Gresham's Law. This decline in quality and weight led to a confusing situation. The value of a penning was no longer stable. A coin minted in one decade might be worth significantly less than one from a previous era. To combat this, rulers sometimes ordered a renovatio monetae, a coin renewal. All old coins had to be handed in, melted down, and restruck into new coins, often of a lower silver content, with the king or bishop taking a handsome profit from the process. For ordinary people, this created uncertainty and distrust. The simple silver penning of King Olaf had evolved into a complex and often unreliable currency, setting the stage for major reforms. As Sweden grew into a more powerful and organized kingdom during the late Middle Ages, its simple and chaotic monetary situation had to evolve. A single coin type, the penning, which constantly changed in value, was no longer enough for a nation engaged in international trade with the powerful Hanseatic League. A more structured system was needed. Around 1370, a major reform introduced a new system of accounting based on the mark. The mark wasn't a coin itself, but a unit of value, a way of counting. Originally, a mark was a unit of weight, equal to about 210 grams of silver. This new system was hierarchical. The base unit was still the penning. A certain number of penningar made up an ore, and 8 ore made up 1 mark. So the system was, 1 mark equals 8 ore equals 192 penningar, though this last number could vary. For the first time, Sweden had a logical, tiered monetary system, at least on paper. This allowed for larger sums of money to be calculated easily, which was essential for merchants, landowners, and the royal treasury. Coins like the urtug, worth a third of an ur, were introduced to fit into this new structure, providing a much-needed mid-value coin. The 16th century brought another monumental change with the arrival of the dollar. The name comes from the Joachimsthaler, a large, high-quality silver coin first minted in Bohemia. These big silver coins were becoming the standard for international trade across Europe, and Sweden needed to keep up. In 1534, under King Gustav Vasa, Sweden minted its first dollar. This was a magnificent, heavy, silver coin, far larger and more impressive than anything that had come before. It was intended as a trade coin, a symbol of Sweden's growing status and economic ambition on the European stage. Now, Sweden had a dual system. The daler was the high-value silver coin for big transactions and international trade, while the mark and ur system was used for everyday domestic payments. However, the value of these two systems was not fixed. The silver content of the smaller ur coins was often debased by kings needing to fund wars, while the daler generally kept its high silver purity. This meant the exchange rate between the daler and the mark was constantly fluctuating, creating a new kind of economic headache. This complex, shifting relationship between different coins and accounting units would define Sweden's monetary history for centuries to come. In the 17th century, Sweden found itself in a peculiar situation. It had become a great European power, with a mighty army fighting in wars across the continent, particularly the 30 Years' War. Wars are, well, incredibly expensive, and the kingdom was constantly short of its most important strategic resource: silver. However, Sweden had something else in abundance: copper. The mine at Falun in central Sweden was the world's largest producer of copper, accounting for as much as 2/3 of Europe's entire supply. This presented both a problem and a unique opportunity. The problem was that copper was worth much, much less than silver. To solve its currency crisis and leverage its copper wealth, Sweden embarked on one of the most remarkable monetary experiments in history. In 1644, it began to issue plot mint, or plate money. These were not coins in any conventional sense. They were enormous rectangular plates of raw copper, some weighing nearly 20 kilograms, or about 44 pounds. To be accepted as official money, each plate was stamped in the corners and the center with its value in silver dollar, the date, and the royal insignia. This created a currency that was, to put it mildly, difficult to carry. A single plate worth 10 silver daler was so heavy it would take 2 hands to lift. Paying for a horse or a cow might require a cart to haul your change. These copper plates were what is known as fiat money. Their value was guaranteed by the state, but their metallic value in copper was supposed to match their stamped value in silver daler. This made them incredibly cumbersome, but honest. You were getting a huge slab of valuable industrial metal which could always be melted down if the currency failed. For over a century, these copper giants were a part of Swedish economic life. They circulated alongside conventional silver coins and, later, paper banknotes. Their sheer size and weight are a powerful symbol of the length Sweden went to in order to finance its age as a great power. While they were eventually replaced by more practical forms of money, the plate money remains one of the most fascinating curiosities in the history of currency. It stands as a testament to a time when a nation's wealth was so tangible you could barely lift it. A literal mountain of money mined from the earth. The 18th century was a period of great turmoil and reform for Sweden. The costly Great Northern War had exhausted the nation's finances. The complex and unstable system of having different values for the daler and silver, the daler silver mint, and the daler and copper. The daler copper mint, alongside the gigantic plate money, had created economic chaos. The value of money was unpredictable, making trade difficult and hurting ordinary people. It was clear that a major overhaul was needed to restore confidence and create a stable, modern currency for a nation that was no longer a military superpower, but was developing into an industrial one. The solution came in 1777 with a major monetary reform under King Gustav III. This reform swept away the old, confusing system of marks, öre, and multiple types of dollar. A new, single standard unit was introduced, the riksdaler. This new coin was based on a solid silver standard, and it was divided into 48 skilling, with each skilling further divided into 12 rundstycken. For the first time in a very long time, Sweden had a clear, unified, and relatively stable currency. The goal was to tie the nation's money directly to a fixed amount of silver, bringing predictability back to the economy. The riksdaler became the backbone of the Swedish economy for nearly a century. It was a large, impressive, silver coin, often featuring a portrait of the reigning monarch on one side and the national coat of arms on the other. Its introduction marked a shift towards a more centralized and professionally managed monetary policy, similar to what was happening in other advanced European nations. The reform wasn't a perfect fix, and periods of war and economic stress, like the Napoleonic Wars, would again lead to the issuing of paper money and a temporary departure from the silver standard, but the riksdaler system provided a much-needed foundation. This era of the silver riksdaler finally came to an end in 1873. Sweden, along with Denmark and Norway, decided to join the modern international trend and adopt the gold standard. They formed the Scandinavian Monetary Union. The riksdaler was replaced by a new currency, the krona, meaning crown. One riksdaler was exchanged for one krona. The new krona coins were still minted in silver from the 10 öre up to the 2 kroner, but their value was now legally defined in terms of gold, not silver. This marked the beginning of the end for silver as the ultimate measure of value in Sweden. The introduction of the krona in 1873 did not immediately banish silver from the pockets of Swedes. For decades, the new currency continued to be minted in precious metal. The smaller coins were bronze, but the 10, 25, and 50 öre pieces, as well as the 1 and 2 kroner coins, were all made of silver. They had a satisfying weight and shine, a tangible link to centuries of monetary tradition. A person's wealth could still be felt in the heft of the silver coins they carried. This system, tied to the gold standard, brought a period of remarkable price stability that lasted until the outbreak of the First World War in 1914. The immense economic pressures of 2 world wars in the 20th century spelled the definitive end for silver in circulating coinage. Wars require vast sums of money and raw materials. Precious metals like silver became strategic resources, needed for industry and to back national finances, not for making everyday coins. During and after the wars, the silver content in Swedish coins was progressively reduced. The coins became lighter, mixed with more copper and nickel. What was once 80% pure silver became 60%, and then dropped to just 40%. The shine was literally and figuratively fading. The final curtain call for silver in everyday Swedish money came in the 1960s. The global price of silver was rising sharply, to the point where the metallic value of the coins was becoming worth more than their face value. People naturally began to hoard the silver coins, melting them down for their bullion content. To prevent the entire currency system from collapsing as coins vanished from circulation, Sweden, like most other countries, made a decisive move. In 1968, the last silver coin intended for circulation, the 1 krona, was minted. From then on, all new coins were made from base metals like copper-nickel, which looked silvery but contained none of the precious metal. This was a quiet but profound moment. For the first time in almost 1,000 years, since Olof Skötkonung first struck his silver pennings in Sigtuna, the daily money of the Swedish people was completely divorced from the value of precious metal. The coins in their pockets were now purely tokens, their value based entirely on the trust and authority of the state, not on their intrinsic worth. The long saga of Swedish silver, from Viking hoards to the riksdaler, had finally come to an end in the realm of everyday commerce. A new chapter in the story of money had begun. Although silver vanished from the change in people's pockets, Sweden's relationship with the precious metal was far from over. The rich history, the beauty, and the intrinsic value of silver coins ensured they would live on in a new role as collector's items and commemorative pieces. The Swedish Royal Mint, the Riksbank, understood that there was still a deep appreciation for beautifully crafted coins made of precious metal. They began to issue special coins to mark important national events, royal anniversaries, or to honor significant figures from Swedish history. These modern commemorative coins are not intended to be spent in shops. They are works of art, minted in limited quantities and made from high-purity silver, or sometimes gold. They celebrate everything from the wedding of a royal princess to the anniversary of a famous author like Astrid Lindgren, or the achievements of a scientist like Carl Linnaeus. For collectors, or numismatists, these coins are a way to connect with Sweden's culture and history. Each piece tells a story, captured in the gleaming surface of the metal that once formed the foundation of the nation's economy. This practice keeps the craft of minting precious metal coins alive. It continues a tradition that stretches back a millennium. The old silver coins, from the Viking Age pennings to the 19th century riksdalers, are now highly sought-after artifacts. They are windows into the past. Studying them tells us about medieval trade routes, the power of kings, the hardships of war, and the economic development of a nation. A small thin bracteate speaks of the fragility of the medieval economy, while a heavy silver daler speaks of the ambition of a rising European power. In conclusion, the story of Swedish silver coinage is a remarkable journey. It all began in a small workshop in Sigtuna, around 995 CE, when King Olof Skötkonung decided to create a national currency, borrowing his design from the English pennies of the day. This single act sparked a rich and complex monetary tradition that would evolve over 1,000 years. From the simple silver penning, through the chaos of medieval debasements, the ambition of the dollar, the absurdity of the giant copper plates, and the stability of the riksdaler, the story of Sweden's coins is the story of Sweden itself. Though silver no longer jingles in our pockets, its legacy is preserved in the treasured collections that celebrate its long and shining history.